welcome to another edition of Thinking Like a Lawyer. I'm Joe Patrice from Above the Law. I'm joined by Kathryn Rubino and Chris Williams. How's everybody doing?
I'm good. Does me interrupting you in the intro not bother you anymore?
I am pretending it didn't exist.
Oh, okay.
I'll probably edit it out. I'll just cut off your mic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Starting the week off right.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you got to be on brands at all times.
Speaking of being on brand at all times, yeah. Welcome to the small talk portion of our conversation.
You're the fucking worst. I mean, come on.
So yeah, how's everybody doing?
I mean, I don't know. I'm very cold. It's February. I'm over it. I'm ready for spring.
Okay.
It's something like 35 days or something in that neighborhood before the sun doesn't set until 7 p.m. again, and that's where I need to be.
Well, depending on what the groundhogs tell you.
That's why I said the sunset, not just like an arbitrary spring. And I believe that Punxsutawney Phil said 6 more weeks of winter. So
that sounds about right.
Screw that little.
Pre or post death, Punxsutawney?
No, that's a different one who died.
Okay.
That was a non-canonical groundhog.
Okay. A Protestant hog.
A heretic hog. That was the hog that Bill de Blasio dropped way back in the day. Remember he tried to get one and it squirmed out and it dropped? That is the one that ultimately left the New York Central Park Zoo or whatever, moved to Jersey and died recently.
Why do you know this?
It lived a life.
Thank you.
It lived a life.
What life do you lead where you know that off the top?
It's like the news, the articles about it dying, which like you all knew about one dying. I just read the article where they died and it made that connection and pointed it out.
To be clear,
did you write the article?
I didn't know. I mean, I just, that's not really my beat.
That implies that there's somebody who's just tracking semi-famous animals whose only job is to write about animals you might have heard of before.
Steve
obits.
Steve from accounting. He has a very interesting life.
Rodent obits. He is survived by yeah.
Related by marriage to Punxsutawney.
I mean, I'm not sure.
Well, I also don't really believe that groundhogs get married. I don't think that they. I don't think that they have. They don't have any such traditions. And I think that us implying that they do is really overwriting groundhog culture in a.
That's fair. I think their only tradition is this meteorology thing.
That's organic.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere, man.
So,
Chris, how was your weekend?
It was a nice weekend. I reconnected with a friend I haven't spoken to in about 12 years. Friend I met through RuneScape. We used to. This is before the evolution of combat. We used to fight next together. I know that was all Spanish, or actually, I think next is Latin for death. So I know that's all Latin. But it was nice to reconnect, and I got a lot of experience in fletching. So RuneScape, old school RuneScape, forever.
Yeah, nice.
That sounds like you had a good time. I didn't understand it. But
it was
sounds
good.
Like you had fun. There you go.
It was very good. Nerded out very heavily. I did eat. The diet consisted of cheese and Girl Scout cookies, but I had calories.
I love. Okay, what's your favorite Girl Scout cookie?
So they have a new one that's actually kind of fire. I don't know the name of it, but it's like a It looks like it has like a caramel chunk in the middle of it, and it's like looks like some of the cookie from the Thin Mint around it with a little chocolate drizzle on top. It was really nice, but Thin Mints are hard to beat.
I mean, they're a classic for a reason.
They're a classic for a reason, and the peanut butter ones are nice. Also,
the tagalongs or the peanut butter sandwich cookies.
The peanut butter ones that had it's like peanut butter and then they're covered in chocolate.
Those are the tagalongs. Those are also really good. You get like 3 of them in a box, but worth it every time.
Also, respect to you for knowing them by name.
Well, I mean, maybe not obvious to you, but very obviously to me, I was a Girl Scout for a lot of years. And now my nieces are Girl Scouts. And so I have a direct line to boxes of cookies. Whatever.
That's cool. I've been looking for a cookie plug. So if I run low, I'll be sure to hit you up.
You got it.
I mean, trefoils are the best ones.
You are the most boring person I've ever met. For the uninitiated, those are just the shortbread cookies.
Yeah.
They're plain. They're plain.
Very good.
You also like vanilla.
To be fair,
ice
a
cream.
couple months ago, this guy was trying to make eggnog in a pressure cooker with eggs that were cooking for like 2 weeks. So I haven't forgotten that. I still lose sleep at night.
it used to like occupy space in your brain.
It was an immersion cooker in order to pasteurize the eggs.
That doesn't make it better, Joe.
Yeah, I mean,
it was an artisan foie gras cultivator. I don't care. Why you just buy the eggnog?
Grocery stores sell it now.
Yeah, with rum in it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, there was plenty of that in what I made too. Anyway, I think we're good. Is everybody without any further objection?
Can you?
I'm sorry if you had anything else that it has now ended. Small talk.
You're the worst.
Yeah.
You are the worst.
I don't know as though that's true, but you know who might be the worst? The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals.
They're not great.
How's
They're not
that
great.
as a transition? All right. What's going on with the Fifth Circuit? We complain about the Supreme Court a lot around here, but the Fifth Circuit is a special kind.
It is the worst of the circuits. I think that is pretty clear. And as many people are aware, we're still in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. So good for us. But there was we've kept it going for so long, you guys. Look what we did. But there was an argument in the Fifth Circuit, and one of the attorneys for the United States, Joshua Koppel, had asked to appear at the oral argument remotely because he has 2 young children, and, again, pandemic, and his children cannot be vaccinated as of yet. That was denied. So he appeared. He traveled to New Orleans for the argument, and in front of the Fifth Circuit panel of Jerry Smith, Jennifer Elrod, and Andy Oldham, he appeared at the lectern to give his argument, and Judge Smith asked him to remove his mask. He said, "I prefer to leave it on. If we would prefer that you remove it, thank you." Pardon? We would prefer that you remove it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the Fifth Circuit in Florida?
No, this is of course Texas and Louisiana. This hearing
it's just
was
like a
in New Orleans.
spiritual Florida thing, I guess.
In their heart, they're Florida men. But what is particularly interesting is that New Orleans has an indoor mask mandate in effect. All, according to their mandate, all indoor spaces except while actively eating or drinking. No word about oral arguments, obviously, there. Also, there's audio of the hearing, and you can listen to it. I embedded it in the story as well, and it is perfectly clear. It's not like some sort of a mumbled, somebody can't understand what's happening situation. The masked individual is as clear as the unmasked judges. And this is just an instance where the judges wanted to assert their own authority, an anti-mask worldview. And it is pretty reprehensible, all things being equal, in my mind.
Yeah. It was a little impressive. I did not expect that kind of aggressive science denial fun from anybody, but I guess if I did, it would be the Fifth Circuit.
Certainly, if this was going to happen in a federal circuit court, it was going to be the Fifth Circuit.
Yeah.
I think that is undisputed. Still surprising that it happened in a federal circuit court, to my mind.
In violation of local laws. Now, I mean, I know the federal courts can make the argument that they are immune on their property from the state laws, but still.
Yes, you would still think that federalism would demand that you at least, care what. Vaguely
try to follow what's going on around you. Yeah, no, it's problematic. It is another indicator that we've crossed into just performative awfulness. This, of course, is a follow-on to our conversation about Neil Gorsuch refusing to wear a mask despite the fact that everyone else has been told to.
So apparently. I guess I'm at the point where I'm like, well, at least Neil Gorsuch doesn't demand that other people take off their masks. So...
He's not in charge yet. That's that line that John Roberts gets to have over him, I guess.
But what I will say is I appreciate the spillover because for the longest time, so much of lesser evil discourse has been concerned with presidential candidates, but now we can say that about judges and circuits. Like, hey, they might have some horrible jurisprudence concerning natives, but hey, they wear masks.
So I'll say the addendum to this story, of course, and unfortunately, I don't have the exact tweet in front of me. Or not, it wasn't a tweet, but it was covered in a tweet. But the addendum to this story is immediately after this becomes a newsworthy. I believe the very next day, the Fifth Circuit had another hearing, different panel.
Yeah.
Oh, you do have it.
I do. Beth Walensky covered it on Twitter, and Rafi Malokin put when Judge Willett was on a different panel, basically subtweeting his colleagues, said, "You can remove or keep your mask on at the podium. It's totally your call."
Yeah. Which the phrase subtweeting is critical because Judge Don Willett, for those who are relatively new to this space, before being elevated to the Fifth Circuit, he was a Texas state judge who was heavily active on Twitter. He was like a power tweeter, and it was actually fun and interesting. Like a conservative judge, but a very engaging personality. He was a lot of fun to follow. As part of being elevated to the Fifth Circuit, he agreed to no longer tweet, but he still gets the culture. And that was a brutal subtweet.
he still gets what's going on.
Wait, he had to give up tweeting to be on the circuit?
Yep.
I mean, the president doesn't, but
that's what I'm saying. Like, what? It must be a branch.
Well,
thing.
he's actually just better at his job, right?
And in fairness, I don't know as though there was a formal discussion about this as much as it was there were deep concerns about a federal judge tweeting as much as he did, and he was like, "Yeah, that's not a problem. I can stop doing that." So
he probably has an amazing burner account. It's just like
somewhere out there,
not tweet judge.
Yeah. That's what's going on at the Fifth Circuit, which is super exciting and great for democracy and everything, I guess it doesn't really impact democracy because it's a life tenured court, but it's great for, a society in collapse.
Yeah, I mean, we very clearly live in a hellscape. So,
So on that exciting news, who's going to answer the call to fix this problem?
Who will answer the call?
Yeah.
Well, if you're interested in having other people answer your calls,
right?
Oh, I saw what you were cooking there.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Well, let's hear from our sponsors, Posh. So it's been a busy time.
Yeah. You know how I know it's busy?
How?
Because we've had the phone ringing off the hook.
Off the hook? Is it really on a hook?
I think that it's one of those phraseologies,
those idioms that you're just not going to let go of.
I'm not going to, but you know what I will let go of? My need to actually answer the telephone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and how will you do that?
Virtual receptionist services.
All right.
Yeah.
That makes some sense.
Yeah, it really does.
So let's hear from Posh about that.
As a lawyer, ever wish you could be in two places at once? You could take a call when you're in court, capture a lead during a meeting. That's where Posh comes in. We're live virtual receptionists who answer and transfer your calls so you never miss an opportunity. And the Posh app lets you control when your receptionist steps in. So if you can't answer, Posh can. And if you've got it, Posh is just a tap away. With Posh, you can save as much as 40% off your current service provider's rates. Start your free trial today at posh.com.
I hate having to do this, but at the risk of continuing to engage in a discourse that should have, by all rights, ended 2 weeks ago, I guess we should talk about Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I guess we should.
Yeah, look, and so the Joe Rogan thing.
Do we have to be on shrooms for this?
Let's talk about whether or not the Mayans were visited by ancient aliens or whatever he says in between interviewing Proud Boys. But the point is, the Rogan stuff is a little outside of our purview as a legal matter generally, whether he's spreading misinformation or interviewing aggressive racists and not worrying about it at all. Those are bad things, but not necessarily where a legal show would pop in. Where a legal show does pop in, and I wanted to talk about, is my pet peeve of the whole discourse has been people arguing that Neil Young and similarly minded folks pulling their music from Spotify are engaged in censorship of Joe Rogan's free speech rights.
That is not true, because Neil Young while an excellent artist is not, in fact, the U.S. federal government.
No.
Nor a state government.
Not yet, but once they take our guns.
Then we'll live in the United States of Neil Young.
He's Canadian, so I don't even know as though it gets to that.
So was Obama. Look at that.
No. Obama was. Ted Cruz continues to be. But yeah,
Still
so
is.
he's not the U.S. federal government, nor any of these artists. There is no free speech right that compels you to give your labor to a company you disagree with.
This feels like a tea show,
It's
respect. Neil Young is not the United States federal government.
Yeah, one true, but this is the whole problem with this discourse. And what bugs me about it is I do have to constantly give a civics lesson to people who write us emails complaining about the censorship and how I'm not worried enough about the First Amendment, and I have to explain the First Amendment has nothing to do with any of this. But what's really terrifying, and I have talked about this in the past with regard to other quote-unquote free speech issues, but the real problem going on is there's been a subtle but deliberate shift in how people talk about speech in this country from you can't have the awesome power of the government pick sides to it is a virtue in and of itself for you to sit quietly and listen to unpopular speech. That is not a value that has ever been endorsed or celebrated. When people say awful things, your job is to tell them they said awful things, not to sit there and take it. But the virtue, according to these folks, is that you accept bad opinions, not that you don't let the federal government stop people from expressing bad opinions. And that subtle shift is in full display in this entire discussion. The fact that I get deluged by emails from people who seem to think the First Amendment has anything to do with this is a sign of the breakdown of civic education.
Right.
And that's where we come in, because as lawyers, this is what we have to tell people, no, this doesn't apply.
Yeah, people's misunderstanding of the First Amendment is shocking because people talk about the First Amendment so often.
Right. Well, and I'll go even further, because first of all, First Amendment doesn't apply. Done. But secondly, sometimes people will go that extra bit and say, well, even if it's not a First Amendment legal thing, isn't it a problem with free speech? And I'm like, no, because free speech isn't about just being, as I put it, a passive bullshit receptacle. You don't have to listen to people say bad things, and you certainly don't have to give your labor to them to allow them to do that, which is really the issue, because all Neil Young's doing is saying, the stuff that I made, you don't get to sell. That's how free markets work, last I heard.
That is something I find weird about it, because I do think that there should be some fundamental tension between how right-leaning people are talking about this amorphous freedom and what they should be supporting as far as like the right to contract. Like the right to contract isn't constitutionally backed up anymore like it used to be, but it's still something they're like, hey, we get to deal with who we want. But then they're like, hey, you have to listen to us now. Like, no, especially where money is concerned. Like, because we are at a point where money is speech. It's considered speech. There's jurisprudence considering that. And it's like, if I don't want to contribute my money there, even if you're not buying the right to whatever my speech is, you should at least respect my right to contract with who I choose to. And they're like, which is why I'm surprised that there's not a contract angle with the Georgetown discussion in Shapiro. That kind of just went out of the discourse.
Yeah, for a legal movement that is trying to bring back the Lochner era, it is weird how much they hate the idea of contracting.
Well, I mean, part of it's also because there's no ideological consistency here. That's not true.
Wait. Are you suggesting these people act in bad faith?
I actually fully support the use of the soundboard in that particular instance. I wanted to be clear.
I was about to be like, you know what, Kathryn is right. That was too much.
That was perfect, though.
Maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle, and we can all agree that I'm right.
But no, the only ideology is whatever if somebody attacks the right, then they are wrong. And there's no other binding legal theory that attaches all of these various positions that the far right currently has. It is just, we are right, everyone else is wrong, and we are going to scream about it until you basically submit.
Maybe some Carl Schmitt would help.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess with the invocation of Carl Schmitt, we come to the conclusion of a conversation about interviewing Nazis. And
it comes full circle.
Well done. Yeah, no, that really did get us all the way back.
Listen, I do what I can.
Anywho, so that's what's going on. Hey, listen, everybody, tell people in your lives this isn't what free speech means. Free speech means something. It's not that everybody has to respect everybody else's opinion.
Right.
And we don't really respect his. Anyway, so we'll move to a final conversation, which is, I think, an important one, an pressing one for all of you who are currently working as lawyers. Milbank, as we discussed, raised associate salaries. Several firms have followed that.
But not as many as you would have thought.
Yeah. And there's some big holdouts. And it's making you wonder, are people willing to lowball their own associates? Are they looking to come up with something bigger? Is everybody just afraid to move?
Yes. I think that there's a lot of fear in, listen, big law is little c conservative, especially fiscally, right? And it often takes a lot for them to make big financial moves. Milbank coming out, raising salaries, forcing the rest of the market to kind of respond. We haven't heard yet, though, from Cravath or Davis Polk, which are the other two large pieces. You know, if there's kind of a triumvirate of big law salary movers, it's Milbank, Cravath, and DPW. And the whatever the trio of them eventually settle on is what the overall market, at least at the very tippy top of big law, will fundamentally settle on. But with two of those pieces still not making any moves, it makes you wonder what is going on. It's not surprising that other folks have not come out with their salaries because they're waiting to see what those other two big players do. It has taken longer than you would expect for those other two players to kind of do something. And both of them have historically come over the top, at least in some ways, meaning for some classes, maybe not across the board for every class, but they have historically come over the top of whatever numbers Milbank has put out there. Maybe that's what's in the offing. Maybe they're waiting to see exactly how much bigger their numbers are going to get. Unclear. But we're kind of in a wait and see what is going on, big question mark moment right now. And, you know, even some firms, I think Morgan Lewis told their associates on Friday that they are aware of what's happening. They will at least get a true up payment in April to these numbers, but they're not convinced that these are the end of the numbers. And rather than make multiple announcements, what they announced is that we will make you right by the end of the year, or at least by mid-year. And we're going to wait and see until then, but don't freak out. We'll make you whole.
I actually found more interesting the Norton Rose announcement, which was similar because Norton Rose had said, we're aware of what's going on. We aren't going to do anything now, but we'll do whatever the market eventually decides, which, you know, whatever. But then a week later, they just went ahead and matched Milbank, almost as though they had come to the conclusion that they didn't have to wait on anybody. Really.
Or perhaps they were getting enough agitation from their ranks that it wasn't, even if they have to make a second announcement, it's maybe worth it to kind of soothe fears. And the distinction also, I think, in the Morgan Lewis announcement to the Norton Rose announcement is that they've committed to making a bonus payment that will consist of that true up amount. So it's not like, oh, well, we missed 3 months of salary at this higher rate. Whenever they decide it, they have committed to those payments, which I think will go a little bit further in soothing nervous associates.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And obviously, outside of the purview of law, there's a lot of talk about inflation. And, you know, this is part of it. You know, inflation as a general matter is considered bad, but it, you know, some measure. I once heard a Nobel Prize winning economist describe inflation as the alcohol that people bring to the punch bowl. And he was like, because nobody wants there to be no alcohol in the punch bowl. But if you get too much alcohol in the punch bowl, that's
you're going to
really
have a
bad
bad
too.
time.
And he argued that, like, look, you shouldn't be aggressively anti-inflation, but you need to be very worried about things getting out of hand. And that puts us in where we are now. And I think there may be some concern on the part of some of these firms that if they engage in raising salaries all that much, it's going to contribute to that, which I think is a little ridiculous to the extent that this conversation is not, impacting how much the partners feel they can take home in profits,
right.
Which is also part of inflation. So it's a little disingenuous to go that route, but that's where we are.
I'm sure in time that if you're working at a big enough firm, you're going to be making at least as much money as the Milbank raises.
Yeah, I think that's true. And yeah, I just don't understand why big players aren't doing something. It's starting to look conspicuous that they have taken no stance one way or the other.
Yeah. But they will eventually, and when they do, Above the Law will be there to report it for you.
Oh, there you go. Good
plug.
Yeah.
See, it was also organic and natural. See how sometimes you can make those plugs and just, make them feel like they're normal. And I actually remember.
I'm aware. I'm really good at that.
Oh, what's the name of that podcast that you're on? Finding out that not all your plugs are as.
What?
You don't always remember the name of the podcast that you.
Thinking like a lawyer.
No.
Fight.
All right, this is over.
Yeah. So with that, I do think that we're pretty much over. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. You should be subscribed to the show. That way you don't miss any episodes. You should be giving it reviews, stars, writing something. The act of just writing anything shows engagement. That helps people find the show. You should be reading Above the Law. That way you see these stories before they hit the podcast summary. You should be listening to the Jabot, which Kathryn hosts. You should listen to Legal Tech Week's Journalist Roundtable, which I'm a panelist on every week. If you're interested in the legal tech stuff, you should check out the Legal Talk Network's other panoply of shows, which sometimes involve us. I've been guests on them. I've guest hosted them, but we're not there every week. But, check those out. You should be following us on social media. I'm at Joseph Patrice. She's at Kathryn1, the numeral 1. He's at Rights for Rent. You should be checking out Posh, our new sponsor. And I think that now brings us to
Peace.
Everything. Yeah. All right.
See you next week.
Bye.